Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. Back to this good friend and CEO of Hemlane. Dana, how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Michael, for having me.
Thank you. You wanted to see Happy, so I just picked her up from the ground. Here she is.
Oh,
She's 15 weeks now, I think. Maybe 16 weeks. Yeah. So,
oh my
yeah,
gosh.
a
She
new
is so
new
cute.
treasure. Kind of
Yeah.
looks like an Ewok, right? Kind of that Ewok
Yeah.
look. Yeah. If I wasn't dead set on the name Happy, I might have called her Ewok, but I
Oh,
was I was set on Happy.
yeah. Why did you name her Happy? I'm
I wanted a name that when I said it, I smiled, and I couldn't think of anything better than Happy.
I love it. I love it.
I got to tell you, I did have a plan B. Plan B was Cashew because of the color, but
Yeah.
I would never call her Cashew. I would call her Cash.
Cash.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But
It's like your rentals. You get cash there,
yeah.
cash with your dog. It's fantastic.
Cash, because think about it, right? Cash, come here. Cash, sit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The crazy things. Anyways, I'm sorry. I digress. We have a topic to talk about. So, Dana, one of the things I thought we should just brainstorm when I hear new investors, they want to hear folks like us talk about, and that is lease duration. So I thought we would both talk about it. 1 year, 2 year, month to month. What's going on? What do you see out there?
Yeah, well, again, it depends on your specific portfolio,
Mhm,
right? And where your property is located and what others are doing.
mhm.
So keep that in mind. But, you change to the times. I saw during COVID, a lot of folks moved to month and they had never considered month to
Oh,
month.
for sure. Yes.
And then people said, okay, now with eviction moratoriums coming to an end, let's, lock tenants in for a year, maybe 2 years. But then people are saying, ooh, with inflation, we don't know how much prices are going up. Maybe having 2-year leases, which
Yeah.
I think is a fantastic idea to have two, if you can lock them in for 2 years and you've done your research on really screening the tenants. If you haven't done that, don't lock them into 2 years.
Yeah.
But if you have, doing 1 year and saying followed the next year by, 2% increase, 3%, whatever you think is fair for your area based on trends, that's great. You can lock them in. But now with inflation, the question is, or stagflation,
Mm.
to your point, like the question is like, should you be doing 2 years? So I actually wanted your opinion also on that.
Yeah.
And I've seen 3 years too. I've
Yeah.
also seen, before I jump into what you're going to say, I've also seen people say, gosh, it's during the middle of winter and snow. So I'm not going to do a 12-month lease. I'm going to try to make it 18-month. I'm trying to get it on a summer turnover. When schools when kids are out of school. So anyways, wanted to kind of hear your thought of what you've seen successful as well.
Yeah, so I'll answer this two ways. One is always what happens in my business, and I've never kind of deviated. It's always 1 year lease, roll month to month. It's what's in the system. It's what's in the process. I have to admit, during the eviction moratoriums, I certainly played with the idea of going, maybe no more yearly leases for a little while, but we never went there. I certainly had the discussions. Basically, it would not have given me much. It would not have, it may have eased a couple of evictions if there was a problem, but once you start doing real tenant selection and criteria, you kind of weed those ones out. So I've done yearly leases, roll month to month the whole time. Now, what I would recommend other folks doing. So a lot of folks follow this channel are doing self-management using Hemlane. What I generally recommend is if you're doing houses, like single family homes, maybe condos or townhouses, if that's your market, but basically one residence, right? Not connected walls. I think going for the two, and I've seen occasionally three, I feel better at 2 years is a good idea, right? Especially if you're doing self-management. You kind of want to set it and forget it. If you're doing in cold winter areas, I strongly advise making a lease come due during the spring or summer, right? You want to remove the chances of having a vacancy during a bad weather month. But so I think that still holds true, even though I think inflation is real. I think what you should do if you're a one rental at a time fan is you're getting 30-year debt. You don't have any adjustable rate mortgages. You're making sure it cash flows today. A 2 year lease gives you certainty, or at least more certainty. I don't know that I would go for three. I think three works, in the 2000s because rents were really kind of flat, at least in my market, for 5 to 7 years. But yeah, I don't think I'd be up for a 3 year lease today. I mean, we really could see 7 to 15% rent growth in some markets. So I think that compounded over 3 years might be a little much, but 2 years is great. And especially if you're doing self-management, right? And you have a full-time job, anything you could do to de-risk a turn is better for everyone. So I really like that. So that's homes. Apartments, like, I have some apartment buildings. I've never had great success the few times I've tried it back in the day, going multi-year. When they got to move, they got to move.
Yeah.
They're just going to break the lease. And I just didn't see the upside in apartments. Houses, I get houses. My average tenure in a house is 8 years. My average tenure in apartments, 27 months, I think. So I don't know. I generally would not recommend it in an apartment, but a house, yeah, I think 2 years is great. And again, offer you 1 year, offer 2, see what's better for you or them. Again, it's part of a service business you have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with what you just said about multifamily. If someone's going to break, they're going to break. I mean, it's the same thing with single family homes.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to buy a house, they're going to break anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important to look at that termination clause and also
Mm-hmm.
what your state dictates of early termination of leases.
Mm-hmm.
But you just see it so much more often with apartments. So, I mean, maybe you can get that to an 18-month if you're trying to move something to summer turnover.
Yeah.
But I don't see a lot of apartment complexes ever going to something that is greater than that. I haven't even seen the success. And a lot of times we look at institutional
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what are institutional investors doing with their property management. And how do we bring that to the retail investors,
Mm-hmm.
to, the mom and pops to understand best practices. And even there, I don't see ever with multifamily leases that extend greater than a year.
Yeah. I interact with other landlords in my market. Many of them make me look tiny, right? They have 10, 20x what I have. And they're like, apartments, even their class A kind of, if you look at the monopoly board, kind of Boardwalk and Park Place for my market, they're not doing multi-year leases in apartments, or sometimes even condo communities that are all rentals. They just do yearly leases there. So it's kind of interesting. So the other thing, folks, I want to remind you of is the course, How to Get Started One Rental at a Time. There is a self-management section. In that section, you have a 30-day trial with Dana, but you also have Dion from Dion Talk talking about his binder strategy, which is something I would definitely use if you were doing single family homes, how you put together a binder, you communicate out to the tenants, and you really lock them in for a year or two. So I love the pairing of you and Dion's topics on self-management. Any closing thoughts on this?
Fantastic. I think from that perspective, I guess I have one question for you.
Sure.
Is if a tenant does come to you and say, I do want a 2-year lease, or I'd be willing to do that, with what we're seeing in the market today and the growth, would you go up and just say, yeah, I'm going to put it up to, 5%, something that, just to kind of hedge yourself? Or would you do what you would have done, a year or two ago if you were having the same conversation?
Yeah. So this happens a while, right? I've been doing it 20 years. Kind of my standard answer the last 18 years or so is, okay, for many of that time is I just say yes. I mean, because I wouldn't even ask for a rent bump. Because rents in my market were flat for 6 to 8 years.
Yeah.
Today, I'd have to get something. Yeah. Maybe it's 5%. I would need something for that second year. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is I don't think tenants understand as much on what's going on with prices. I think they do see it in day to day with them buying goods in markets, and suddenly they've gone up, $3 to $4. But I don't think they understand, why would you raise it by this much, right?
Yeah.
And then there's that education component. So anyways, that's my last thought there.
And let's not forget, right? California adopted rent control for units, not houses.
Yep.
Right. So let's remember that. But also it's 5 plus CPI. So I think the cap's 10%. So there's going to be a lot of 10% rent increases next year in California in units, because CPI is north of 5%. So rent growth is coming. So, again, in an environment that is highly inflationary, like I think we're going to have for the next 3 to 5 years, I'm not really keen to do multi-year. I'll consider it, but it's not going to be my starting point. And if you want to play with this, There is a section trial. You can do the 30-day trial. They get the 30-day trial on himlane.com, correct?
Yep, that's correct. And
Very
just
cool.
mention one rental at a time for a discount.
Woo, save money. I like it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mhm.